Imagine dedicating your entire life to capturing the exact way light dances across a lily pond. Imagine fighting the entire art establishment, enduring years of crushing poverty, and finally proving to the world that your unique way of seeing was nothing short of revolutionary. Now imagine reaching the absolute peak of your mastery, only to realize that the very eyes you relied on to change the world are slowly, irreversibly going blind. This is not just a tragedy, it is the story of one of the greatest battles in the history of art. A battle fought not with swords but with paintbrushes against the fading of the light. The man who painted the air itself, the founding father of Impressionism, Claude Monet, spent his final decades fighting a terrifying enemy: cataracts. As his vision turned into a muddy, blurry nightmare, his paintings became wilder, more abstract, and ironically laid the groundwork for modern art. But how does a master of color continue to paint when he can no longer see the colors on his palette? To understand the magnitude of this loss, we have to look at what Monet's eyes had achieved before they began to fail him. In the middle of the 19th century, the French art world was ruled by the Académie des Beaux-Arts. They liked their paintings highly polished, historically accurate, and incredibly boring. They painted in studios. They blended their brushstrokes until the surface was as smooth as glass. Monet wanted none of that. He wanted to paint the truth of a single moment. He took his easel outside, a radical act at the time, and painted what he actually saw, not what he was supposed to see. He noticed that shadows were not just black or brown, but filled with deep purples and blues. He saw that water was a mirror reflecting a constantly shifting sky. In 1872, he painted a hazy morning scene of the harbor in Le Havre. He called it Impression Sunrise. When it was exhibited 2 years later, a hostile critic used the title to mock the entire group of artists, calling them mere impressionists who could not finish a painting. The insult backfired. Monet and his friends adopted the name, and a revolution was born. But revolution does not pay the bills immediately. For years, Monet lived in desperate poverty. He often had to beg friends for money to buy paint and bread. Sometimes, he scraped the paint off old canvases just so he could paint something new. He even attempted to throw himself into the Seine River to end his financial misery. Yet his obsession with capturing the fleeting effects of light kept him alive and kept him painting. Eventually, the tide turned. The world began to understand his vision. By the 1890s, Monet was not just successful, he was wealthy. He bought a house in the village of Giverny and began his greatest masterpiece, his garden. He diverted a river to create a water garden. He planted weeping willows, bamboo, and imported water lilies from South America and Egypt. He built a green Japanese footbridge. Giverny became his personal paradise, a controlled environment where he could paint the same subjects over and over again under different lighting conditions. This was the era of his famous series paintings. He would set up half a dozen canvases in a field and paint haystacks. As the sun moved and the light changed, he would frantically switch from one canvas to the next, desperate to capture the exact atmosphere of a specific 10-minute window. He did the same with the Rouen Cathedral, painting its facade in the morning mist, the blazing noon sun, and the fading twilight. He was a man completely consumed by the act of seeing. He once said that he wished he had been born blind and then suddenly gained his sight so that he could begin to paint without knowing what the objects were before him. He just wanted to see pure shape and pure color. But as the 20th century dawned, a cruel irony began to unfold. The man who lived only for his eyes began to notice a creeping fog at the edges of his vision. It started subtly. In 1912, at the age of 72, Monet was officially diagnosed with cataracts in both eyes. A cataract is a clouding of the lens in the eye, turning it from clear to opaque yellowish-brown. For a normal person, it is a frustrating inconvenience. For Claude Monet, it was a death sentence for his art. Over the next decade, we can literally see his blindness progressing by looking at his paintings. His delicate, shimmering blues and vibrant greens began to disappear. Why? because the yellowing lens of his eyes was acting like a filter, blocking out the cooler colors of the spectrum. To compensate, Monet started using heavier, warmer colors. His paintings from this period are dominated by muddy reds, harsh oranges, and thick, murky yellows. The precise, delicate brushstrokes of his earlier years gave way to broad, aggressive, almost violent smears of paint. The water lilies, once perfectly defined resting on glassy water, became chaotic swirls of fiery color. He was terrified. He was profoundly frustrated. He wrote letters to his friends expressing his deep despair. He said that he could no longer see the colors he was mixing, relying entirely on the labels on the paint tubes and his memory of where he placed them on his palette. Imagine the psychological torture, possessing the mind and the soul of the world's greatest colorist, but looking out at a world that looked like it was submerged in dirty water. His frustration frequently boiled over into rage. Monet was known to have a fiery temper, and as his sight failed, he became a harsh critic of his own work. He destroyed countless canvases, slashing them with a knife or kicking a hole straight through them in fits of depression. He did not want the world to see the work of a blind man. He did not want pity. His friends, including the French Prime Minister Georges Clemenceau, begged him to undergo surgery. But cataract surgery in the early 1920s was not the routine, laser-precise procedure it is today. It was dangerous, painful, and carried a high risk of total blindness. Monet was terrified of the operation. He had seen his friend, the artist Mary Cassatt, undergo a similar surgery that left her almost completely blind. He refused. Instead, he kept painting, guided by sheer memory and muscle memory, working on massive canvases that would eventually become his grand decorations. These were enormous, immersive paintings of his water lily pond designed to wrap around the walls of curved rooms. He worked on them relentlessly, even as his vision deteriorated to the point where he could essentially only distinguish light and dark. Finally, in 1923, nearly blind in his right eye and struggling with his left, he relented. He underwent multiple operations. The recovery was brutal. He had to lie completely still for days with sandbags holding his head in place to prevent movement. When the bandages were finally removed, the results were not immediately miraculous. He experienced highly distorted vision and complained bitterly to his doctors that the surgery had ruined him. But then, something fascinating happened. The human eye's natural lens filters out ultraviolet light. When Monet's cloudy lens was completely removed during the surgery, that natural filter was gone. It is widely believed by scientists and art historians today that in his final years, Claude Monet could actually see ultraviolet light. Flowers that look white to normal human eyes might have looked brilliantly blue or purple to him. We see this striking shift in his final paintings. After years of muddy reds and oranges, his canvases suddenly exploded with vivid, vibrant, almost neon blues and purples. It was as if he had broken through to a completely different dimension of color. Equipped with special, incredibly thick glasses, Monet returned to his beloved garden. He was 83 years old, exhausted, but completely determined. He spent the last 3 years of his life furiously finishing his water lily murals. He was no longer painting the surface of the water, he was painting the entire atmosphere, the reflections of the sky, the depth of the pond, all blending into a massive, abstract universe of color. These final, gigantic paintings were fundamentally different from everything that came before. Because he could not focus on fine details, he painted the pure essence of the scene. The forms dissolved entirely. The composition became boundless. Without even meaning to, while battling the darkness in his own eyes, Claude Monet had crossed the bridge from Impressionism into modern, abstract art. Artists like Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko would later look at these late water lilies and see the absolute future of painting. Claude Monet died in 1926 at the age of 86. He had kept his promise to his friend Clemenceau. Finishing the massive water lily panels that now hang in Paris, offering a sanctuary of absolute peace to anyone who walks into the room. He was a man who changed how the world sees, lost his own ability to see, and then, through sheer willpower and obsession, found an entirely new way to paint the light. His story is a testament to the indestructible nature of human creativity. It proves that true vision does not just happen in the eyes, it happens in the mind and in the soul. If you found this journey into the life and struggles of Claude Monet as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments which legendary or mysterious figure from history we should explore next. Until then, keep looking at the world a little closer and never take the light for granted.